Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns and Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we're talking about the spell Scatter.
Oh, scatter. Go. Run out of town, but not do that. Actually teleport people out of town. Because that's what scatter does. Scatter's sweet.
Not out of town,
That's
unless you live
true.
in a very small town.
They probably are towns this small, right?
Whoville.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a sixth level conjuration spell from Xanthos Guide to everything for sorcerers, warlocks, or wizards. It's got a cast time of an action, 30-foot range, verbal components, instantaneous duration. You love to hear it. The air quivers around you. I'm sorry. I'll restart. The air quivers around up to 5 creatures of your choice that you can see within range. An unwilling creature must succeed on a wisdom saving throw to resist the spell. You teleport each affected target to an unoccupied space you can see within 120 feet of you. That space must be on the ground or floor. That's the whole of the text.
Yeah.
If anything within 30 feet of you, up to 5 of those things, if they're willing, you put them where you want them. If they're unwilling, they make a whiz save, and if they fail, you put them where you want them, as long as it's on the ground.
Yeah, none of those shenanigans, putting them up in the air and having them fall.
Yeah, you can't quite weaponize fall damage how I'd wish you could with this. It's a 6th level spell. It'd be fine. It'd be fine, but it doesn't. It makes you put things on the ground, which is kind of lame.
I don't know. I don't even care. That's not how you weaponize this.
Okay, then how do you weaponize this?
You put them in a place where that's about to be fireballed, or in a place that is already have a continuous damage zone.
As long as that space qualifies as unoccupied. Which is,
well, I mean,
I think that counts for a lot of those things, like Wall of Lights and stuff. I think you should be able to
another
put things
creature
in...
isn't there.
Yeah.
That's got to be the case, or else the spell is not nearly as good as I want it to be.
Listen, I agree with you. I'm checking right now, just because, it's good to check the internet and see what people's general consensus is. So let's assume it does work the way that you want it. Are you a big fan?
This is my favorite teleportation spell.
Why is it your favorite?
For just the reasons I just said. Well, no.
For throwing people into fireballs and into wall of fires and stuff.
That's an option. Otherwise, a spell for you and the party to get out of immediate danger. But more often, I'm putting other enemies in immediate danger. I like it because you get 5 targets. So it's for save or suck, some of them aren't going to make their wisdom throws.
Yeah.
So it's probably always doing something. If you have 5 targets within 30 feet of you.
I honestly think that the means of making other things that don't want to be moved with it, I think that's kind of just upside. I think the juice of scatter is 5, you and 4 buddies go to different spots around the map instantaneously and just can all of a sudden be in a bunch of different spots at once. This is it's very much a fun plot, ability to me to have someone engage on you, right? The guards come to get you or whatever, but we're using 6th level spells, like the dragon guards or something. We're looking at a little bit more prestigious monsters, and they think you have you all cornered, and your back's against the wall, and you just go, all right, everybody, scatter! And then everyone just teleports 120 feet in different directions, and they have to try and recollect where everyone's gone, and it has a big high chaos moment. I think this is a little bit better of a get out of jail free than some of the other options that exist, especially because the other utility of it is, all right, the whole group is going to dimension or door with us, so it feels kind of like an upcast dimension door. And that's pretty decent. I think that's a pretty high floor, to be perfectly honest. There's going to be a lot of out of combat utility that I think Scatter can deliver on, not in a way that's necessarily more powerful than the lower level options, but in a way that brings the whole group along with you, which is pretty cool. And then being also able to yeet people into soon to be damaging areas or actively damaging areas definitely helps it.
See, I think that's the meat of the spell, and the other stuff is the gravy. And the way I would want to use it. That's the meat for me.
I'm finding conflicting arguments on the internet talking about it. So I don't think unoccupied spaces are particularly well defined to my knowledge. If
you want to get really nitpicky, I mean, as long as there's air that's occupied.
Well, that's why this game is a mess. So Jeremy Crawford says that it's supposed to be unoccupied spaces are occupied by creatures, but there are also a lot of people that say a space has to be unoccupied, has to be vacant, and those two are very fundamentally different things. And again, there's not like a, I really wish there was a rule that simply says an unoccupied space is a space that doesn't have a creature in it. That would be really useful to exist somewhere. I don't know if that does. If I'm DMing for the spell, you can definitely eat people into walls of fire. And I think rules is written, you can.
I'm calling it official. That's
Okay, Bob's ruling. You can do
yes.
it. You heard it here first. Tell us know in the comments if we're wrong. It definitely wildly warps how powerful the spell is if you can't do this. So
I
yeah,
need to
take
buy
that
a
with a grain of
gavel.
salt. Listen, I will, whatever my end rating for this is, if you can't get people into active damaging effects rules as written, knock it down a number grade. Going forward, we'll assume it can, though, and I would recommend DMing it such. So,
Yeah,
like, what spells do you want to throw people
I
into?
would say that as well, except that I'm not going to accept any other ruling.
All right, fair enough. It has to be this way, or you're just not playing the game. You're nope, you're wrong. This is stupid. Takes
That's
chair back over, walks
I
out.
like this spell that much, and for these reasons that
Sure.
yeah, I'm gonna go to a different table.
I get the general gist that you really like setting up spells. You really like the convoluted plans to make something better than it is, like bringing a whole of a bunch of different parts together to make them better than the sum, right? That's the kind of gameplay I always see you kind of getting really excited about. I think this is one of those components, right? Because on its surface value, if you have no damaging areas, this spell is almost meaningless text as far as like what it's doing. A 6th level spell to move someone 120 feet is not a particularly good, like on its own, if you have no ways to weaponize it beyond movement, teleporting something 120 feet away from you, if it's got range attacks, if it's got any other means of doing things, it's on a whiz save, like there's a lot of room for that to be quite bad as far as not efficiency.
Well,
There's
yeah, I
not a
mean,
lot of juice to get out of it.
if if there's no other effects going, then don't do it. That's not when
Sure.
you're casting this. Doesn't I mean, and you are a wizard or a sorcerer or whatever, this doesn't take your concentration.
That's true.
Get one of those effects up and running.
That's you put up your own firestorm, or I guess firestorm's instantaneous. Put up your own. I'm gonna keep going back to walls because they are easy to jump to mind. Your wall of ice, right? Put someone back in that freezing cloud again. Put someone in the consistent damaging stinking cloud or whatever.
Yeah,
Sure.
whatever.
I think I'm gonna level with you. I think that setup and this costing a 6th level slot, it'll
Yeah,
take you
it is
multiple rounds
pricey.
to set up.
All right, well, no, all right, no.
Eh,
You set up your stinking cloud or
sure.
your whatever. I guess
You're
not
pro-
entangled, but
you definitely
anyway,
want it to be
you're
higher level than this, right? You definitely want to be throwing things back into like a blade barrier that's been upcast or something, right? You want to be
maybe
using. Okay.
what I'm saying is, all right, they're already in there. They're
Okay.
taking damage, and then they come back out. That's when you
You
eat
scatter them
them
back
back
in.
in. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's a great way, to when creatures start crawling out of there, you get up to 5 of them, or even if even when some of the ones are in still in there, but getting close to the edge, you stick them back in the middle.
Sure. I think that is a very fun fantasy. I don't see it coming to fruition all that often, especially whenever you start comparing it to like Gust of Wind. And like if we're comparing a 6th level effect to a push, I'm a
That's
little
a push for
concerned.
one creature.
The
This is
Gust of
up
Wind
to
is a whole
5.
line. So like you can get multiple things in it a lot of the time, and you can move it
Yeah,
around to force other creatures to make it safe, and that does it round after round after round.
if they're walking single file out of your blade barrier,
I
like
think that
students at a fire drill.
listen, I love conceptually trying to bring that fantasy together. I think the cost, I'm not making a character that has to spend its 1 or 2 6th level slots in the upper tiers, putting things back in what are kind of just averaging, middling, damaging spells anyway, whenever you've got way more powerful instantaneous effects that you can do. And when your concentration often is going to be eaten by a lot of the modern like summon stuff, which is what a lot of players are having their concentration being taken up by these days, right? Is the summon elemental, is the summon fiend, or even the effects that empower your multi-attacking, even things like hex and whatnot. There are bigger concentration effects that don't deploy the area, which makes scatter feel a little bit like you have to build around it, and the payoff costs, and like the enabler costs more than the payoff does spell slot wise a lot of the time, where you're like, I guess I'm using a 4th level slot to get the damaging area effect. I got 2 instances of that, and I'm going to use a 6th level slot to throw them back in it, as opposed to just be like, oh, cast Fireball or something. It seems like there's a lot going very right already, that this spell might just, if your goal is for damage at least, you're probably better off with like a damaging spell.
But if your goal is
Alternatively,
for fun,
that's fair.
then this I can't think of many more fun things to do.
I think I agree. I think this is definitely on the high end of fun for
Yeah,
sure.
just when they think they're escaping, oh, these blades aren't slicing me anymore. Thank goodness. Yeet.
Back into the blade barrier you go.
Yep,
I do think we're discounting. It isn't. You don't have to exclusively pick friends and exclusively pick foes. You
that's
can do
true
both,
too. Yeah.
right? So you can say the one barbarian, to the backline wizards you go, all of the cobalt, the other like, four enemies or whatever that ran out of the blade barrier, back into the blade barrier you go. And
Mm.
you get a little bit more of this upside utility of it. I honestly think that's probably, there will be a non-zero amount of encounters where you'll have just enough creatures within 30 feet of you. Will be like, you want to go somewhere specific, you want to go somewhere specific, I want to go somewhere specific. I might as well also just take these two baddies and throw them in the opposite corner of the room and we'll deal with them later, right? And you can kind of get like this 240-foot gap, right? Because you teleport each to an unoccupied space you can see within 120 feet of you, so you can have a
Yeah.
240-foot span of that. That's a very far distance. That can eat a lot of dashes if that's the goal. And that's not the end of the world. I still don't love the cost, because remember, this is a 6th level spell.
Yeah, but
And
ooh,
it's
that's
instantaneous
I don't
one.
love the cost either, but
Yeah.
I'm willing to pay it.
Yeah, I think I would be too. I think I'd be willing to pay it once or twice in a campaign, and then I'd be like, okay, we're actually getting lethal threats sent at us now. I can't keep memeing around with these silly, super fun spells. I probably should use more proactive ones. But that's going to be depending on your DM, event table table, all that
I
kind of
mean,
stuff, right?
it had occurred to me before we started recording this video that yes, you could mix and match,
Mm-hmm.
friends and foes with the single casting of the spell. But now that we're bringing it up, that bumps it up another level for me because yeah, there's not always going to be 5 creatures you need to eat back into the blade barrier, but move a couple of your pieces where you want, and if you got any left over, into the blade barrier they go.
And like 30 feet around you is a pretty enormous area when you look
Mm.
at it front to back. That's going to encompass most things you'd care about anyway. And then you're moving them in a pretty huge distance off the battle map most of the time. So that's pretty cool. This spell has a lot of little things going for it. I really think we haven't touched much on it out of combat utility where I actually think it shines the brightest. But again, because Dimension Door exists, because there are lower level, cheaper ways to do the teleportation thing, you don't really need the teleportation thing for 5 creatures whenever you can do it for 2. Like, it's not really worth the cost to me, but it could, if this is the one teleportation spell you have on your sheet, it will do some neat things once or twice in an encounter. It'll do a neat thing out of combat and exploration mode whenever everyone's infiltrating the castle and you go, okay, great, everyone scatter in, or everyone scatter out, or put all of us in different areas of the dungeon to make the monsters miserable and have no idea how to track us down or anything like that. And make the DM really go have an enormous headache of trying to run then 5 separate encounters as people get teleported into the walls and things like that. You don't have to see where the things are going. So that's a meaningful challenge as well.
Yeah.
In any case, I really think the spell could have just been anywhere. I don't see much of the point of making it have to be restricted to the ground. I think if they would be in the air, the spell would be a lot better and a lot more usable in more circumstances. Where it is now, I think it's probably not worth its cost, but still pretty fun.
It's worth it for me.
That's fair. The fun
Uh,
levels got you there.
yeah. Are we at the rating time now?
Sure. I'm gonna give
Yeah,
it, if you can teleport people into blade
you
barriers,
can.
a 3 out of 5. If you can't, that's not very good. Probably a 2. But if you're working with your cleric, if you got a game plan that's built around a high damage effect area, and you want to sculpt a character to do that, this is an enabler. It's an expensive one, but it's an enabler that also does a lot of other things. So it's got a pretty high flexibility. It's got a pretty high cost. That's not the end of the world. I think these spells are fun to exist. I think this spell's a really fun spell again that I would recommend playing around with. I just don't think you can ever reliably say, like, this is the highest, most powerful, damaging thing I've ever got access to. It'll be a fine
Oh,
effect on
no,
the characters that really want it.
I'm one of them. I'm going to irresponsibly give this a 5.
You love just being like, everyone teleport. High
Yeah,
chaos moment.
it's like I said, flexibility. It can be used out of combat, in combat, different ways in combat. I yeah,
I have
five
a
out of five.
question.
Yes.
If let's say you've got a kraken that's grappling like 30 creatures at the moment, and you teleport that kraken, I'm assuming it drops all the creatures, but I don't know for
See, I'm
certain.
not assuming that. See, I was thinking with Dimension Door, what is that? You and a buddy?
Yeah, you and a buddy go with Dimension Door, so I don't know if
Yeah,
you.
I'm thinking if you got your half orc super strong barbarian, he can pick up the little halfling rogue, and you get three teleports out of that.
I don't know what the answer to that question is.
All items
YouTube comments. I'd
worn or
love to
carried.
hear. Sure. I don't. Again, Warner carried is stretching the term of grappling a little bit, don't you think? It's a little bit
Wait,
dishonest.
no, I'm not talking about grabbing an enemy. That's grappling. I'm talking about like holding, cradling your halfling buddy.
I mean, you can cradle an enemy knoll as a Goliath or something, right? Like you can grab a kobold by the head and stick him under your arm and carry him
Yeah,
around like that. I
I
don't
think
know
that
if
counts.
you don't. Okay, sure. In any case, there's going to be fun nonsense. There's also going to be a lot of questions the table's going to very easily and quickly come up with whenever this kind of teleportation magic starts to happen. And that's going to lead to some pretty fun times, I think. So I think you can really enjoy the spell. I would recommend it, even if I don't think it's that great. It's fine, probably.
All right, that was Scatter. Thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for joining us. Leave us your thoughts in the comments, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it, a gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description, where you'll find my Caverns and Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.